Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Ball Watching. Elephant in the room. Jake has a new haircut. For anyone that's watching on the visual, on those types of mediums, I have decided that in solidarity with the team, I am going to keep my head this length until we turn the ship around and we get back going. So it's like the opposite of a playoff beard. I'm going to keep this beard anyway because I would look like an imposter without it. But the head will be shaved until we figure some of this ish out with St. Louis City. And if you're listening already, you don't know the result. Obviously, wasn't a good one last night with a 4-1 loss at the hands of Vancouver Whitecaps. And we're going to be talking about that a little bit today, looking at some of the goals, some of the bigger themes, and then getting into a Seattle preview. Which should be interesting as well, given they've been a little bit of a beast on the home front recently. But Justin, Sunday, in the wake of another home loss, another, etch in that wrong column compared to last year, how do you feel morning after?
Quickly on the haircut stuff. Yesterday was the first time I saw you. I didn't recognize you at first, so I asked you if your son Will even knew who you were, because I'm pretty sure your beard is longer than your hair right now. So if anybody is listening to this on the pod, go check out the YouTube real quick because he looks great. But it's something I haven't seen this haircut out of Jake since maybe like 7th grade. So how I feel about this, I have a lot to talk about. I talked to it. I went to the pitch before, kind of talking about like, oh, how we feeling about all this. Went there after and just absolutely spilled the beans to everybody. I'm like, what is going on with this? And I mean, back-to-back 4-1 losses. Did you even recognize that, Jake? It's like, that's absurd. 8 goals given up in 2 games with this team.
Yeah.
Scoring only 2 games. I understand one's away, don't care. At home, you got to take care of business against a very beatable Vancouver team. And early goal obviously put us in a hole to start. Got one back, was feeling good about that. Like, all right, we can do this. And then Jesus, just absolutely fell apart.
I agree. That's a good synopsis. For something felt different on the drive home last night. I don't know about you, but on the drive home last night for me, I'm doing a lot of reflecting, obviously, because I'm frustrated. It sucks to lose and to spend money on those tickets and to go do the whole thing, all for them to really, I don't even feel like put on much of a show at all. And the mentality and the fight just not there. And if it is there, it's there for fleeting moments. But I feel like I would say the straw that broke the camel's back, but I think that's already happened for this team. And I think what I'm trying to say is that this game to me felt like we've finally totally exhausted most of the goodwill that they built up last season with all of the hype and all of the fun and all of the goals and the home wins and the atmosphere at City Park. The atmosphere wasn't good last night. Tifo aside, which I thought was cool. I love that it said you don't play with your heart. And I didn't see that at all. Like the Tifo's cool, but the players didn't do any bit of that. And at this point, people are like, oh, it's so frustrating. People leaving the stands early. It's like, I'm not going to lie, having to watch, 80 minutes, 90 minutes, 100 minutes of this team when we can't put together a full, complete performance for that amount of minutes, it's really frustrating, man, because there's some highs. You see it. And there are some lows, man. I mean, just unfortunately, the lows far outweigh the highs at this point.
Absolutely. I understand people are like, oh, why would you leave early? I'll be completely honest, Jake. I left early. I mean, after the 4th goal, what am I supposed to do there for the last, 10 minutes of the game? It's like, I'm not going to sit here and watch this. This is nothing. It's not worth my money. I don't care what I paid to get into the game or season tickets or whatever. At that point, it's just so frustrating that it's better for my mental health and my physical health if I am not in the stands at that point.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, let's break into a little bit of the game and get into the starting 11. It was, I'd say, about as a best 11 as you could get to for us at this point with all the injuries that we've had to deal with throughout the season so far. But obviously, Berkey returned from his back spasms. We had Jay Reed maintain his spot at left back. Yarrow came in at center back, replacing Winsel, who I put into our 11 thinking that he would get the go there. I don't think, had he not imploded in Colorado, I think he probably would have started there. And I don't think Yarrow did much to cement his spot there either. Parker, obviously, next to Yarrow. Totland on the right. Durkin, Blum in the middle. Blum was a surprise inclusion. I thought Leuven might stay there and have Kojima stay in the forward 3, but Kojima fell to the bench. and then Indy, Leuven, Klein, and Thor. So Leuven in the 10 spot. But otherwise, I mean, I'm looking at our bench and I'm just like, there's not much else you can do here. You could kind of plug and play a little bit, but like there's like one or two guys that I'd say could maybe be in the starting 11. And if we had more availability, none of those guys, I mean, some of those guys wouldn't even make the bench.
Oh, absolutely. And I talked to a couple different people too about the facts about the firing of Carnell. And it's like, well, when you look at our team, what are we supposed to do? And I understand that. And I think Hackworth's kind of facing this as well. However, we talked about this and I'll consistently stand by it. Something had to change in this team. I think he lost the locker room, which you already kind of mentioned, Jake, in some of those on these post-game comments when we were in the green room. But we're hamstrung, but I don't care. This is a Vancouver team, very beatable. We're at home. You got to take care of business, especially when we're talking about if we want to even have a chance at the playoffs. We'll talk about the magic number here, but it's not looking pretty.
No, it's not. And actually, I want to back up really quick. I got an awesome message from someone that we know that we've worked with for Hope for the Holidays, Justin. But I want to call out one of our super fans. We have one in Leo who tries to listen to all the podcasts. He's tuned in a couple of times on some of the live streams here. And he sounds like he is bleeding that city red and loves to listen to the show. And he tries to frame things up in some of our perspective and what we think about. And man, I love that. So I want to, if Leo, if you're listening, shout out to you. Thank you for listening to the show. We appreciate you, man.
Yes, it's always awesome. The amount of people, Jake, I told you when I went and grabbed a hot dog at halftime yesterday, I was like, or right before the game, I saw 5 different people like pointed at me and said, "Hey, what's up? Like, good to see you. Ball watching. Like, come out and say hi to us." I love when people talk to us at the pitch, at the game. Don't care. Thank you guys for reaching out. And Leo, shout out to you. That's absolutely awesome. Keep that city spirit. It's tough to go through right now, but someone's got to do it. So do it with us.
Yeah, it's got to live on. It's got to live on. Justin, getting into the game, I kind of want to back us out of the minute by minute type things here. Maybe we can take a look at some of the goals, and I think just kind of sum it up from our point of view, both, from our point of view, literally in the stadium, but also just point of view, now as we're armchair center backs looking back at this one following a tough night. So I don't know if you have the first Vancouver goal ready to go for us, but this one, obviously conceding within 10 minutes is never going to be a good thing for any team, regardless of whether you're playing a Vancouver or a Sporting Kansas City. But Blum to be thrown into the starting 11, and I thought he was playing a little bit better as of recently, but to give the ball away so cheaply in this nature and to have us get countered on and go down in the first 10 minutes at home is absolutely brutal. I mean, you cannot start games like that, and to have him do it in such cheap fashion, the writing was on the wall. I mean, I swear Watts was warming up after that. Like it just like Blum, it was not up to it last night. Just not up to it.
We'll talk about the Watts aspect of it once he comes in. But yeah, so if everybody's watching visually, you can see here, Blum has his back to the ball. Fine. He's getting pressed from the center mid. I understand. Takes a good touch here, right here. Absolutely read by Brian White. You could see him leaning and going. Why don't you just give it to Durkin right here? At least that's a flat pass. In my opinion, Jake, I don't think that anybody in that position should be making a flat pass across any part of the field, especially when you're in your own defensive half. Mm-hmm. I would say you could see down here in the bottom, hit it out to Reed. You mishit it, it goes for a throw. You cannot make a shorthanded back pass to Parker, which I think it was going to Parker. Good God, man. This thing didn't even have enough pace to go 10 yards. I don't like if you're going to hit it, you better ping it into Parker's feet. He basically just slotted in Brian White, cut back here. And I will say, when I watched it live, I'm like, why are both of our center backs going at Brian White? Yarrow didn't have enough time to get back. Parker's doing what he needs to do, the overlapping run, and then they finish. Or sorry, Brian White was the one that finished the goal. It was the overlap there. I think, was it Gald? Yeah. I don't care. That the pass from Blum there is something that it's extremely unacceptable. That not even that point in the game, just in general in that position. Look at this. If you're going to play that pass to Parker, you better absolutely ping it in. And look how wide open Jay Reed is down here in the bottom. That's a very poor point from Blum, which you said he was thrown in the starting 11. I agree. He has not been a consistent starter. This man has played at plenty of the top level games for South Africa. For us, he needs to do better there.
Yeah, my biggest thing that I was really frustrated on is he did the hard part, and you hit it on the very first part of this highlight is he spun out of pressure, beat his man, created some space. And I think the limitation with Blum, there's two that really come to mind, is his passing is really poor, especially at distance. He has flashes, but it's not consistent. And the other thing is for a central defensive midfielder, I think you've got to have a little bit of carrying strength in you where you can turn guys and then you can kind of break or cut through some of the lines and dribble out of pressure. There, he had 5-10 yards he could have dribbled into just to free up new options. It could have been Jay Reed, it could have been Parker in new space, it could have been Durkin, it could have been anyone. But to rush that pass, when you've done the hard part, it's a learning opportunity for him. But for us, you learn the hard way. You learn by the knife there, and we get cut through. Gall does a great job baiting in our center backs and frees it up for White, who gets almost another hat trick. Remember that he had a hat trick in our game last time, and now my goal was to shut him down, and we were at his sword within 10 minutes, unfortunately. But you said, Justin, you know what? The boys fought back. I think there was a resurge after that where we saw some good things, some flurries, and ultimately Thor gets on the scoreboard, gets on the end of a free kick where with a full-on volley, and he has that shot blocked. But the follow-up is a big wind-up from the man, and he uses Thor's hammer just to poke that one through the goalkeeper's wickets, and we get back within one. And so now it's 1-1. You know what? First 10 minutes, that sucks, but we're back.
Yeah, quickly on this goal, Jake. I love this by Leuven. You got Leuven and Indy standing over it. They're looking like, how are we going to whip this in? Now look at this pause free frame right here. The one defender that's quote unquote the wall, we're 40 yards out, we're not shooting this. He is wiping his face with sweat. Leuven realizes this, sees Toland's kind of over here in this open space. Also, Vancouver's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 dudes marking no one. And then you have Parker and Thor here on the back post. Leuven does a little quick pass here to Toland, says, go after it. Dude, Toland was not ready for it. And then you see on the back post, Parker and Thor wide open. This was a great call by Leuven to play it quickly. There's no one in the middle here. Flick it to the back post to Thor. Dude, he was winding up before that. I thought it was going to get flicked. We could see it from the stands. This man was wound up like I don't even know, just like a toy. He was ready to rip this. Kind of mishits it. Could have been a handball, but great job by Thor. Look at this. He's already kind of like spinning off. Ball comes back to him. Oh, I got to finish it again. Puts it away. I love the quick reaction for him there. I don't think it's the greatest of goals. Obviously, it's just like a quick knockdown, but it was good for him to see one actually just go through the net. And we'll watch the replay on this. Great ball by Toland on the back. Nice wind up. Possibly a handball. I'm glad that he didn't just start like shouting like it should have been a handball the entire time. And he actually just put one away.
No, it was great. And for him too, I think the confidence has got to be good for him to get that goal. And I think he kind of scored a striker's goal, found himself in the right position, kept himself alive in the play, and poked it through. I don't care. I mean, it can be as ugly as can be. It does not matter. A goal is a goal. And for us, when we're struggling to score, I mean, I'll take whatever, man. I will take whatever. So it was good to level it up. And I think from there, momentum, I think, kind of shifted. I think it was a little more even after that. But what you cannot do is then concede right before the second half. Right before the second half, the first half ends, and you head in the second half. And in the nature that we did. This one, it was for me the breaking point of the night. I think after I saw this goal and the reaction to it from our team, I was very gravely worried, let me just say. And that goal came via a deep cross that was to the back post. Toland, I know you love the show, man, but don't put ball watching in your game because it's not for you. It's not for anyone. But he was so guilty of, I mean, look at him. He has got eyes for the ball and the ball only here. And Fafa Picault, his marker gets on his back shoulder, makes a far post run. It's a great ball in from the Vancouver midfielder. And he heads that on onto Berkey. Berkey with a point-blank bouncing save. I mean, fantastic reflexes there. But the rebound comes out. And Toland and Yarrow are neither in position for the rebound. I think some of it given the ball watching, some of it just given the haphazardness of the rebound. And they poke it through. Berkey gets up, berates Yarrow, kicks the post. You could hear it like HD audio from our seats. And Justin, I want you to talk about the goal from your perspective too, but I want to lodge one discussion question. So go give me your take on the goal, and then I want to ask you about something.
Dude, extreme ball watching. We have it posted right here, just the freeze frame. Toland in a good position. Yarrow, not. You have Brian White on your back shoulder. You have no clue where this man's at. Ball gets whipped in. Yarrow, you are lucky that it continues to float over because that should have been an easy finish for Brian White right there. Toland, what do you watch this next like half second, Jake? Just jogging. Yeah, it's not my stuff. Lets him just get a wide open header. Great save by Berkey. And then, I mean, Yarrow, it's a quick bounce back. He kind of gets taken out from behind, but Toland's just extremely out of position and just extremely frustrated. You can see, look at Berkey just yelling at these boys. And I will say, Jake, and the main reason for that, I think it was right before that. There was a ball in that Berkey had to make a great save. It was over the top. Tim Parker's the guy supposed to be marking right here. Ball over the top. Berkey, great save. That was 15 minutes ago, but this is the one I kind of laughed. They don't show it there on the video, but Berkey absolutely just pings one. Went out for a corner kick, and he pinged it almost into the stands at these people. And lastly, Jake, I don't want to give too many highlights for the other team, but this could have been the goal of the year real quick. If they would have finished this one, this little boop, boop.
I know.
Boop, and then a ping into Berkey. Thank God they put it wide. Ooh. But for anybody that wasn't watching, it was an up back through ball. They were basically juggling it between 3 Vancouver attackers. And I think Berkey's starting to feel the heat there. Like, what am I supposed to do? You guys are literally just letting these guys tee him up for me inside the 6.
He's hung out to dry every game, it feels like now, and twice on Sundays. So my discussion question, how much more of this are you willing to take if you're Roman Berkey? You're not going to retire when your contract ends. I mean, he still looks way up for it. There's no way this is it for him. I think he has another year on his deal with us. So we have him through the end of next season at least. And he is being, like I said, hung out to dry. He's getting no support. His goals against are inflated beyond belief because he has no chance to save most of these goals that are being conceded at his expense. He's playing with defenders that at this point, suspect and mentality-wise, not with it right now. And you have a winner in your net that is refusing to get the best out of his teammates, despite, being the captain, getting very frustrated with teammates. I just want to say it out loud because I am officially worried about his future. If we don't have a star goalkeeper between the sticks for us, we are worse than we are right now. I mean, like, believe it or not, it could and should be worse. So if he were to walk, all I'm saying is that how much more are you willing to take if you're him? You've seen much better.
Yeah, I'll say this, Jake. I think he is definitely at the expense of this. However, I think Jake Gerwood-Reich is going to help us in a little bit there. And I really do hope that, yes, he's going to keep letting up goals solely because of our back line, leaving guys wide open. And he knows it's not his fault, so he's very frustrated with them. I'm going to put a slight positive spin on it and really hope that the newcomers that are coming in are going to be scoring just as many goals that we are giving up, and it's going to help relieve him. It's not going to be ones where, wow, we're going to lose this game 2-0. He's getting no support. It's like Cardinals pitching when we get no run support, even though we scored 9 runs in the first yesterday. Don't care. If you get no run support, no goal support, it's frustrating already in that sense. But if we're scoring 4 goals and he gives up 2, it's like, we got out of here with a dub. He's still going to be frustrated. He's Roman Berkey. He's not just going to let it go, but I think it will help in that sense. But quickly, I did kind of talk to people about it last night as well. I think like I'm already doing it, and I want to make sure I kind of put a kibosh on it. Do not put too much pressure on Toyhurt and Martel that are coming in. These you can't expect these guys to just have a skyrocket to the top. And I think that's going to be the frustrating part is everybody's like, oh, when the Germans get here, we're really going to turn around. We're going to turn it around. I kind of want to pump the brakes on that because that's a lot of pressure for those guys. Yes, they're very good, but this is a team game. And those 2 guys, yes, they can make a difference on the field. I don't think they're going to make a difference in if we're making the playoffs or not on just solely on them. This has to be a locker room effort. And that's the one quick thing I wanted to say on that. Kind of went on a tangent, but I think that needs to be noted.
Yeah. I totally agree with that point. I think they'll move the needle a little bit towards the end of the season here, but given no preseason, they're coming off their own seasons respectively. They'll probably be a little bit leggy. So I think I'd expect to see the full impact starting next season from this team once they can gel and get the chemistry going. But I will say one more time, I'm worried about Berkey. I think he could be tempted to go elsewhere to win if he really wants to win now, because he doesn't have many more years ahead, but he's still playing at top capability. So I do worry a little bit about that. So we'll come back to it.
We still got him under contract. I think that could be an offseason. I mean, obviously, though, if he's unhappy, that might need that he'll just say, I got to move. But I think right now he's a team player. He's going to stick with us. But quickly back to this game, Jake. At halftime, we made a sub. I talked about it. I was frustrated in the fact that the only person I saw warming up in the first half was Watts. I don't get that. I really don't. I said Blum needs to come off at half. 1, because of his mistake, and then he's in his own head. And then 2, he had a yellow. So I think it's a perfect sub to make it half. I'm glad to see that Hackworth was willing to do that and did do that. Watts is not our guy there. My opinion, Jake, and I talked about it. I said it before we even knew who was coming in. Leuven needs to be pulled back, and you put Kojima in up top and let that kid just run around. Watts is a straight swap. Watts for Blum. Just I don't understand it whatsoever. Not better defensively, not better offensively, that's for sure. I don't really understand why Watts is still there and not bagging my groceries.
No, neither are cutting it at this point. I mean, I think he was fine when he came on, but we've tried this many a time throughout this season and last season, and I've never been impressed by that. And I'll give Hackworth a little bit of slack because, again, I think your Kojima move is the move to make. But if you're not going to make that move, I don't know what else you can do. I mean, there's no one else on our team that can come in and do what Blum is supposed to be able to do, but wasn't doing last night. So, I mean, your hands are a little bit tied on that, but we're so thin, man. But I agree. And again, you're down 2-1. You might as well go for it a little bit more and have Kojima come on now versus later and give him a full half to make an impact. So, yeah, I mixed on the what's possible given our bench, but also there's another obvious move to be made there, and it's a shame it didn't happen earlier. But I will say the team responded, though, in the second half. The first 10 minutes or so, we were alive, like more alive than I've seen us, all game so far. And we were hitting these long diagonals to our wingers. Klein found himself on the end of plenty of those, playing in some dangerous service. Both him and Indy. Indy had a great 1-2 with Reed, with a Leuven cross the back post. That one was cleared off the line when Leuven took a touch and ripped it. That was probably our best chance of the second half. But after Vancouver get their third, Justin, in the 64th, I think it was, guess how many shots on target we had as we pressed to really challenge for this game? We had one shot on target.
I will say, Jake, and I think the third goal isn't even worth sharing on here. It was a pretty messy goal. Unfortunate. Yeah. A lot of things kind of bouncing in the box. I do want to share real quickly on the fourth goal, though. Trying to play out of the back. I love it. Berkey in here to Kojima. Good turn, good touch, fair play. You don't give this ball to Johnny Klein right here. Or if you tell him, if he does, and maybe he does gesture this, it's got to be a one-timer out to the right back. Just right off your foot, bounce it. But giving it right there, he's surrounded by four guys, and Kojima then gives it like he's going to give like an up and like a 1-2 with him. You can't be doing that in your own defensive third. Also, Parker, get up the field, buddy. I don't know what you're doing way back here. Tough for Johnny to receive this ball at his feet. I think he right there needs to be a one-time pass. Now we're in, and we're getting put under pressure. You got Tolins out of position. And is that Jay Reed? That's actually in the center? Yeah, yep. So we have Jay Reed trying to defend these guys, and then this is going to be more frustrating for Berkey again. 1v1. What is he supposed to do there on a clean finish? But I think right there, that's the one kind of low light I would say is Kojima, if you're going to give that ball to Johnny, you got to tell him on your back one time, back out to Tolin on the right back, or you just don't give it to him. Or if you give it to him, you don't go sprinting by him and leave him out to dry. So that was a tough one for Kojima and Johnny there.
Yeah, they had a good instance of the press there. By the way, our press, basically inactive last night. No results. Our passes per defensive action was almost 20, which is the highest that I've ever seen it in a game. And they get a third one. That wasn't the third one. That one actually obviously ended up getting, I think, overturned, right? There was that cluster in the box for their third one. They could have had that fourth. It got VAR'd and overturned, but they did get their fourth eventually with Jay Reed. Got caught getting a little cute on the ball up the field. Gall took it off of him, carried it past Parker, played in Fafa Picard, who rounded Berkey and finished. And I would say that was the nail in the coffin, but the nail in the coffin came like 45 minutes before that. But
lastly, Jake, the last thing I'm going to say, Ed, quickly, because I feel like I always got to touch on Sam in these. And if you guys haven't listened to it, go to the Soccer Dad Pod. They had an interview with Sam last week. Go listen to it. It's really good. But Sam comes on. And I'm just going to give him, we're not going to have a highlight or a low light for him, but I'm going to have a low light. His first touch of the game was him like backpedaling at the top of the 18, and he tries to rip a shot. He didn't even touch the ball before that. And it's the first thing he does when he comes on is shoot the ball. I can't get over the mentality of this guy. You got to be a team player. You're not going to be the one that's going to come in the 70th minute, score a hat trick, work the ball, play with the guys. That one was frustrating for me. But I think that's pretty much it for the highlights and lowlights of the game. Would you agree?
Yeah. I think, sum it up, really poor defense. We're playing a fake high line at times where we're not in a line. And I think we're stepping to guys too late or at the wrong times sometimes. And we don't have good recovery speed or good, what the F type defense when things have gone wrong. We need to recover and get bodies back. We're not back in time. We get counted on with numbers. Offensively just looked stale. I mean, unless it was Leuven on the ball, no life to this team at all. And it came out in the press conference. There was a lot of frustration last night. A couple things I want to point out. Hackworth had this to say, said, sorry for the lengthy wait, waiting for the press conference to start. First off, sorry for the wait. We had to have a little come to Jesus moment in the locker room there. I would love a come to Jesus moment locker room count at this point in the season, because I'm hoping there's been 4 or 5, because there have been other come to Jesus moments that should have happened before this one. I hope it's not the first one. And he also, the second thing is that performance was not acceptable. And by the way, Hack, good points for being transparent and real in the press conference. I did not like how Carnell used to handle those, and he really owned it last night. So I appreciate that about him. Chris Durkin said, I think you can see on the pitch right now that it's a fragmented group. It's a group that is not together right now, and words are cheap. It's the action that's important. Justin, you've been saying locker room cultural issues for a while now. We have more and more evidence every single game, and especially losses for us, to back that up, that this team's going without wins. They're starting to point fingers. They're not syncing together, and there's clearly factions. Durkin even mentioned there's guys that are out of contract end of the year that are fighting for their jobs too. So now you've got guys with different goals, because the team goal is kind of going to be missed regardless of how this season ends up happening. And now you've got guys that are playing for themselves, playing for contracts. And I get it. But when you have mismatches and what the end goal or the end result is, there's going to be these things that creep in. Leuven said, bad body language, horrible performance. The goals we let in, our defending was horrible. Also, Leuven, I mean, you weren't that great either. You were fine, but I don't think we should be like pointing at the defense and just saying it was horrible. Like, what's your part in that? He had a couple cheap giveaways as well. So I'm just like, I'm seeing and hearing what we're seeing is now also being mimicked on what they're saying. And it just makes me even more worried. Like, the culture is one thing you got to have down pat, because if you don't have that, you're not going to get results ever if the team is not together. So that to me is, you've got to take a couple of steps back now before you can begin to move forward.
Yeah, I would love to be a fly on the wall and that come to Jesus moment that happened in the locker room, because I think we talked about, Jake, the locker room vibes. We never heard about this last year. That's because when you win, you're never having problems. When you're losing, we got to find true leaders in this. I think Indy came out, two or three games ago in the presser, and I thought he did a really good job. I unfortunately think that Roman Berkey's almost too upset to be talking right now to say any words. I think this is where Leuven needs to step up with these guys. And like, imagine if you're Toyer and Martell and you're kind of in the locker room like, oh my God, what the hell's going on? I'm supposed to take a picture with these guys. It's like something needs to be figured out from a vibes perspective. I'm going to give us a quick vibes perspective, Jake, as we talk about it. So we did do a little giveaway yesterday. And unfortunately, we only scored 1 goal, which is the lowest of the numbers of people that predicted that. But we did have 18 people. So I'm going to spin the wheel live right here. See who gets our $50 gift card to the pitch. We have our 18 people across X and Twitter, and it looks like it's going to be Marigold 087 from Instagram. So thank you, Marigold. Thank you for everybody that joined for that. We will be DMing you and getting a hold of you so that you can get your $50 gift card to the pitch and drink frozen Irish coffees with the boys.
And the pitch was bumping last night. It was packed. It was rowdy. It was loud. Everyone was watching the breaking news from Trump's rally in Pennsylvania. I mean, unbelievable. But the pitch wasn't as sporty as it usually is. But I promise you, it's a lot more light and fun usually. I'm
going straight into our heart and soul juice of the game. I already have it, Jake. There's no one on the field that deserves that. I said the service and the staff at the pitch deserve my heart and soul juice of the game. Our waitress, and then you talk about Jenny and Allie. You got people that are very high up that are literally checking on you, picking up your trash, giving you food. And it's not because they're short-staffed. I'm sure these guys are working their butts off. It's tough this time, getting service and everything. But Jenny and Allie are just those great people that will be doing that because they care about the service of this place. Get to the pitch. If you weren't there, Danny kept talking about it. We were 2.5 hours before the game. It was 5 o'clock, and it was no open seats. People were just loving it down there. The vibes, the fans are still showing out. Get to the pitch if you have not. It was absolutely fantastic yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, more fun at the pitch than it was at City Park. Let's just be honest and call it what it is. But shout out to the culture that Jenny and Allie have built there at the pitch. It's fantastic. So Marigold 087, you can be a part of it, and if you guys should be too. So last thing I want to say before we get into Seattle, Justin, is my final thought. Leagues Cup has been mentioned a lot as something that this team has not ever recovered from since last year. So I just wanted to pull quick stats on that. Leagues Cup, we've played 38 games starting with the first game of Leagues Cup last year. 38 games. So that first game was against Columbus. We lost 2-1. As of last night, we've hit 38 games. We are 8, 13, and 17 since that time span. So we've won 8 of a possible 38 games. which you're never going to go very far on that type of count. We've drawn 37, we've drawn 13, and we've lost 17 of those. Over that time span, we've scored 53 goals in a 38 game span. That's not our pace. And we've conceded 73 goals in that time span. So we have a negative 20 goal differential over those 38 games. So when people talk about Leagues Cup and this team has been the same, I just kind of want to put some numbers to that because it's really not been good. Our average XG over that span has been 1.3 expected goals. Expected goals against is at 1.6. So this team hasn't really ever fully recovered from, that point in the season where we just kind of transitioned and it really kind of ran us out through the playoffs. And then we saw it pick back up again this year with a lot of the early season woes that ended up transitioning and keeping us on this draw tally that we were fine with for a while. And then the losses started to really build up. So all that to contextualize, we've basically been dealing with this version of this team for about a year now.
Yeah, and I will say just quick, we'll get in the previews of all the Leagues Cup. I'm putting a positive spin on this as well, Jake. We talked about it. You kind of made the joke. Last year, we were in the group of death. If anybody remembers, we were in the group of Club America, who ended up winning the Liga MX. And then we were also in Columbus Crew, who ended up winning the MLS Cup. Very tough. Now we're going into an FC Dallas team, which conference standings currently, they sit in 11th in the West. And then you go look at who we're playing against in Liga MX. We were playing FC Juarez. They've only won 9 games in their last 34 as well. This team is also struggling. We're going to call it the group of life. And that's how we're going to get out of that. Jake coined that term. I absolutely love it. But quickly, before we even touch on Leagues Cup, Jake, I'm going to share the magic number calc and show you guys what we're working with for the rest of the season. Cover your eyes. Maybe fast forward if you don't want to see it. It's tough to look at. So we currently have 22 points. We have 11 games remaining. This calculation is all based on essentially if every team keeps their same pace throughout the rest of the season, how many points would we need to make different spots in the playoff? We have 11 games left. Hey, Jake, look at this. If we win every single one of our 11 games, we would get home field advantage in the playoffs, a.k.a. X that thing off your list, City fans. It's not happening. Look at round one without home field. So that would put us in the 4th, 5th, 6th, or 7th spot. Just to get into that 7th spot, we would still need 29 points out of a possible 33. Very much likely not happening. Now, so are we going to make a wild card spot? So getting the 9th spot in the West, 23 points. Possible, yes. Unlikely, no. Let's see what happens in these coming games. But just keep that in mind as we're doing this. We're dropping these points at home versus Vancouver. And we're getting these games where we are at Vancouver up 2-0 and losing 4-3. This is what's putting us in this spot. We need 23 points just on average to get in our last 11 remaining games. And Jake, this is a formula-driven calculus or formula-driven and very calculated way to approach this. But if you look at it, we have 22 points currently. We need 23. That put us at our 45, which you and I always talk about. It's usually the breaking point, give or take a point. But currently at this point in the season, it looks like 45 points would get us into the playoffs. It's going to be tough. You can see our upcoming games right now. We are playing 2 teams that are currently in the playoffs. And then also one of our away games is also versus Sporting Kansas City. So that is going to be absolutely tough.
Yep. Summary is that we've collected 22 points in the first 2/3 of the season. Now, in the remaining third, we need to double our point count, which is possible, unlikely, even given the reinforcements. But last thing I want to say is, Will, I saw your comment in here with the referees. I mean, the referee, I didn't like the referee last night because it was a lot of tiki-taka fouls and just like a lot of calls, which he was consistent on. But that is not the refereeing style that I like. But I have nothing to say that he contributed to our downfall last night. We were the architects of our own loss. But moving on to Seattle, hopefully to, I would say, greener pastures. But Seattle is not a fun place to go play. They are at 9-7-7 this season. Win-loss draw 7th in the West with 34 points. One of their wins was against us at home here at City Park with that awful Hebert own goal. It was like the soccer gods just, giving us some of the worst type of luck you could ever imagine. Then Morris got us back 3 minutes later. We got one back in the second, courtesy of Totland.
Yeah, I would say if anybody doesn't remember that own goal, it's not Kyle Hebert's fault. If you go back and look at it, it was a cross that was coming in. He stuck his foot out, tried to block it. It nicks off of his foot up over Roman Berkey and into the side netting. Yes, Jordan Morris slid one home. Soul Juice. Shout out to Jordan Morris. But then Totland got us back. It was a whipped-in ball from Leuven on a free kick, and Totland gets a toe on it. We fall 2-1 at home versus Seattle. That was our first game against them this season. Now we're going up to Seattle. As Jake mentioned, they are kind of on a hot streak right now. They are 9-7-7 in the West. But having a 5-1-5 record at home, win, loss, draw. That means they've only lost once at home this season is extremely impressive. Their away form, much worse, 4-6-2, but they're playing us in their home field. So the 5-1-5 is more important to remember. Goals for, 32, probably about mid in the MLS. However, goals against of 26 is third best in the MLS. So going up into a very hostile environment in Seattle, we are already struggling to score goals. If you look back at I'll look at it right now, Jake. Our last 2 games, we've scored 1 goal. Then we scored 2 versus San Jose, 3 versus Vancouver. But if you would take it all in our last 8 games, we've scored 8 goals. And we're going against a team that's third best in goal against in the MLS. What are their key results that they've specifically done when they're in Seattle? Their only loss was against Vancouver 0-2, who's currently 6th in the West. Then they have a draw versus LA Galaxy 0-0, a draw versus RSL 1-1. That's respectively 3rd and 2nd in the West. And then last night they just beat Austin at Austin 1-0. The one thing I was noting, Jake, when I was looking through this, and I told you this ahead of time, they have a very strong home record. However, they have not played a lot of strong teams at home, so that's why I tried to pull out some of those games. And you saw, I'm trying to pull out the strongest games they played at home. And I just pulled out 2 draws and a loss, even though they've won 5 and only lost 1. It's because they haven't played a lot of strong teams at home. They played New England at home, Chicago at home, Dallas at home. So this team's hot, but they're not playing a lot of high intensity teams. However, they're still getting the points that they need. And that's what we are just failing to do right now.
Yeah, in 4 of their last 5 games at home have been W's. I mean, so this team is in good form at home, despite who they're playing against. Some players I want to just call out for them. We'll just call out 2 because I think these have been the most impactful for you all, at least, to know about. And that's Jordan Morris. We've talked about him before. Striker, plays across the front 3. 29-year-old now. A big fella, can be a target guy, can be a guy that runs in behind. 9 goals, 1 assist so far this campaign. Started 21 of 23 games played. And I'd say the kind of Robin or the second biggest tool for them is another designated player, and that's Albert Rusnak, who's a 30-year-old Slovakian. He's got 4 goals, 10 assists this season. He's number 5 in the assist count in the MLS and number 10 in goal-creating actions. So they've got some firepower on this team, a lot of veterans that have a lot of good experience.
Yeah, I'm going to touch quickly on Jordan Morris, Jake. Shout out to Soul Juice. Go to souljuice.com. Use code BALLWATCHING for 20% off. Jordan Morris is an ambassador of Soul Juice as well, so it's good to see him getting out there doing well. He's had a goal in each of their last 3 games. And then they played Chicago, where he did not have a goal. The game before that, he had 2 goals again. Then he had a game off where he didn't have a goal. Then the next 2 games, he had a goal. I'm just going to share this real quick, just because it's kind of impressive, the little run that he's been putting on. He's been getting after it, Jake. This is kind of absurd on this run that he's putting together. If you look at this, Jordan Morris, we have a goal in his last 3 games, then a game off. 2 goals here, game off, goal, game off, goal. This man's been on a heater, and that's just since May. He's really turned it on, had a slow start to the season, but he is catching fire right now.
He is. No, he absolutely is, and that's not good news for us to hear. They're still being coached by Brian Schmetzer, who's been in that position since 2016 when he succeeded Sigi Schmid, who the head coach of the year award is named after now. They're playing usually in a 4-2-3-1 style. They do a lot of controlling the ball, high touch count in the opposition half. They do end up taking a lot of long shots too, because as good as their defense is, their offense is fine, I would say. So if we look at their home form one more time, we already talked about their last 5, but they have 1.82 points per match at home with a +9 goal differential. They get some good wing play. They generate some good shot opportunities. Their defense is great for defending set pieces, protecting leads, jumping on the ball, and making sure to block their pass or shots. Offensively, though, they are, like I said, a very average table team. You look at their expected goals and also goals for. They're about even. 1.43 expected goals, 1.41 goals for per 90. But they had the 6th worst non-penalty XG in the league. So they're kind of skewed a little bit into the average part of the table because of their amount of PKs they've been awarded. They have the 2nd most PKs awarded this season. So, you look at it offensively, 23% of their goals for come in the second 10 minutes of the game, 11-20. Another basically 4th of them come in the last 10 minutes of the match. This is a team that has the 2nd worst goals per shot ratio and the 7th longest average distance per shot. So they're not finding those super incisive opportunities, but they seem to put, at least a couple of them in the back of the net. It sounds like it, especially the last couple games. I'm not particularly convinced on either open play or set pieces being a huge strength of theirs. They're bottom 10 in XG for open play, and they're fourth least XG in set pieces. So I don't think either of those carry the biggest threat, but this team can pass the ball, especially in the opposition half. They're number 7 progressive passes. They're top 10 in key passes and passes into the final third. So they find those moments, and they are going to cross the ball as well. They're number 7 in the most amount of crosses in the MLS this season, and they're going to be a higher possession team. So I think for us, it's to get another chance to get back to the things that we do well. As hard as they will be to break down defensively, which you're going to take us into, this is a team that will like to have a lot of the ball, and they'll put us under pressure in our own half.
Yeah, and I would say so. I mean, and it's not an overly high-powered offense. Yes, Jordan Morris is kind of on a heater right now, but we talked about it, though. Their total goals for is pretty, I would say, almost bottom third in the MLS, but their defense is strong. So looking at their 1.29 XGA per 90 is 7th in MLS. However, their goals against per 90, like we already talked about, it's 4th. And the reason that does not align exactly with the third best in MLS for goals against is because some teams have played more, some teams played less games. So they are currently 4th with a 1.18 goals against per 90. When do those goals come? This is a pretty low percentage, Jake, that we have in here. Usually I'd see it a lot higher, but they're not giving up a lot of goals. But 20% of those goals against come in the last 10 minutes of the game, looking from the 81st to the 90th minute. They are also top 10 least shots on target against as well, which is also, it's just showing that they are actually holding a defense and not being reliant on their goalkeeper to make all these saves. In open play, they're top 10 in shots and sixth best in XG as well. And their set pieces are 4th lowest in XGA, and they're tied for number 1 in fewest goals against as well when you talk about it from a set pieces perspective. So it's not like they're just extremely good on set pieces or extremely good in open play. It's a mixture of both. And this is going to be a tough one for us to play against. When we look at their goalkeeping more specifically, though, they're bottom 10 in saves, but top 10 in save percentage. That's showing that he has not had to make a lot of saves because the defense isn't allowing the shots on goal. Their post-shot XG minus goals against of a minus 0.5 is saying that Fry has been solid. I'd say a little below average, but he hasn't really had to do a ton for this team because they haven't been giving up the chances to make him to be relied upon to make saves.
Yep. No, I agree. So I think getting into our keys to the game before the Hoffman brothers starting 11 is Seattle's a team in form. You've got to find a way to come out of here and slap them around, at least in the very opening minutes, to remind them that we're not going to go away easily, even though we have the last 2 games. They're tied for the first in points for the last 5 games, number 8 in the last 10. So they're in form. You've got to find a way to take your lack of and somehow get into their form and disrupt it. And I think part of that is they've got a lot of defensive resolve. You've got to be able to capitalize on the minimal amount of opportunities that you're going to get here. So there's not going to be a lot. They're a very stingy team in terms of chances given up. So we've got to be able to break them down. It doesn't need to be sexy. It's just got to be, pragmatic, and it's got to be clinical in terms of finishing for us. So I think we're going to need to return to some of the basics that we've been installed for the last, 1.5 seasons. And I think part of that is bringing back the press. It's been gone the last 2 games. It's a distant memory at this point. And watching it last night, I feel like we could have done with a little bit more of that. So I would love for the team to come out, plucky, away from home, and try to break Seattle's flow that they seem to be in right now. And I think part of that is making them uncomfortable in possession. They do draw a lot of fouls, though, so you cannot be giving away cheap fouls. So I love the press, but don't be cheap about it. So those are some of the things I think about as we head into Seattle.
I would say my one key to the game here, and JT put it in there, and I'm going to agree with him. Let's just have a little Ted Lasso marathon. Can we just believe as a team? This is a team that we already talked about. The locker room issues are struggling right now. We should just have the boys just sit down, watch a little Ted Lasso, hash things out. Let's get it done. Yeah, it's probably a little corny, but I like it. So let's just believe in this team. I would say from a fan base and from inside the locker room. This is a Seattle team that, yes, we've talked about a very high-powered offense. They're on a heater right now. They're still what do we say? They're 7th right now in the West. This is not an unbeatable team. This is very beatable. It's going to be a tough atmosphere, but can we go get a dub before then we have to go to Kansas City next weekend, which I will be in attendance. We'll talk about that later. But can we just believe in this team from a fan base and from a perspective in the locker room? Shout out Ted Lasso.
Yeah, no, I'm all about believing, but I'm seeing your prediction down here, Justin. We'll have to talk about that here. So let's get into the Hoffman brothers starting 11. We've gotten a reprieve from some of the heat with all of the rain last week, but there's never a bad time to get these guys on your side for everyone. That's just because we're in that reprieve. By the way, it's not even reprieve now. There's like 97 degrees, I think, is the high today. So make sure that if you have any sort of home service needs, that you are contacting Hoffman Brothers. The best protection you can get is proactive protection. And you can do that by contacting them today, have them out, make sure they can kind of give a diagnostic, kind of scan your AC, I guess, at this point during the summer, and, choose whether or not you can give some services. I love the people that I've always met from there, and they've all been so nice and so educational as well. And I, for one, need that. So shout out to the Hoffman Brothers, our presenting sponsor for 2024. You can reach them via phone at 314-664-3011 or visit them online at hoffmanbros.com. And now,
hold on. Sorry, I cut you off right there. Little teaser. Look at this weather, dude. If you guys have not reached out to Hoffman Brothers, do it now. It's gonna cool off on Wednesday. Don't wait for it to tick back up. You don't act like Wednesday is gonna be, once we get down in the 80s again, it's gonna be the end of the summer. We're just getting into the middle of July in St. Louis. Call the Hoffman Brothers. Reach out to them. White glove service, the best in the business. All right, Jake, now back to your stuff.
All right.
I've been having to go back and use like an old clip because I haven't liked the way that I've brought us into this one, but this one's kind of funny. I was like, all right, and now, Jake, back to you. So I'll clip this one.
Yeah, let's talk about it. Obviously short rest for this one, but so will they. So both teams are dealing with the same thing. I am going to go with Berkey, obviously back between the pipes. I put Watts at my left back position to give Reed a break, given he started the last 3 games. But I'm kind of off that train as well, as I'm seeing your commentary in the document here. So we're gonna go back to Reed. I put Yarrow in here before I knew that he was going to start this past game. So I'm actually going to Winsel at center back here, and then I'm going to Parker. Totlin, I'm sorry, buddy. You got to whether it's crutches or athletic tape, you got to get on the field. We just have no other options at this point. I'm going to return to, I think, Dirk and Leuven as the 8 and 6, and then bring back the original 4 that I think it drove us to at least some initial success when Hackworth took over. Back to Indy, back to Klein in the middle, Kojima outright, and then Thor up top. And for everyone wondering, this is the last game where none of our new signings are officially eligible. That doesn't mean they're all going to start against Sporting, but they will be eligible to play if Hackworth were to play them. So that's my 11. What do you think?
I think we're going to have a pretty different starting 11 here, Jake. It is a midweek game. So like we talked about, we have this game Wednesday. Everybody's got to keep in mind that we're then back at Kansas City on Saturday as well. I'm going to go Marcanic at left back. Give Reed a little bit of a break. I'm going to throw Marcanic in there. I think at this point, dude, Reed's done incredible. I'd rather save his legs for a great game versus Kansas City, which I think means a lot. That's a hostile environment. Play him with the new signings as well. Marcanic at left. I think Nelson's going to be healthy for this one, Jake. I'm going to put him at center back with Parker and then put Totlin on the right as well. Like that guy needs a wheelchair. I feel so bad, but you were doing great, buddy. Just keep it up. And then I'm also going to go with a Leuven and Durkin in front of them. And then you're going to laugh at me, Jake. I'm going to go Indy, Klein, Kojima, and Big Sam. I think this is a game where you give Big Sam a full 90. I was talking about it with one of our listeners in the stands, Ben. I just think that it's tough as a offensive player to come in, regardless if you get in the 65th, which I think Hackworth has been doing better about than Carnell did. I would like to see Big Sam in a role where you give him a good 60 minutes of a game, not coming in the 60th. And I think it also gives Thor a little bit of rest. I will say Thor has been playing well, and yes, he had a goal last night, but I talked about it with people. I think that something needs to change. I think that goal was kind of a fluke, in my opinion, and I don't think that Thor really created it on his own. Let's see what Big Sam can do. Can that change the locker room vibes? Can he just bulldoze us a goal, get ahead in Seattle, and then we park the bus?
All right. I mean, good thoughts. I do understand because I think now that the season's kind of where it's at, I think Sporting Kansas City is looked at as a game where you've got to get a mental win. It's not going to mean like we're going to be in the playoffs now, but you cannot then now take this whole string of games and then lose against your rival who we've been on the wrong side of recently.
And that's our last regular season game for a month. So that's Sporting Kansas City won. So I do think that this one, I think we could see a decent amount of changes in this Wednesday game being a midweek game, already tough in Seattle. I think we have to go to Sporting Kansas City and throw the kitchen sink at them with the new signings. Everybody's got to be healthy. That's why I do think that Reed will get a little bit of rest here, put him at left back for Sporting Kansas City. I think we could see a switch up here. And unfortunately, Jake, we don't have time to be doing these switch ups midweek anymore because we're running out of games. But I think from a rest perspective and a vibes perspective, it might need to happen.
So Justin, you were so optimistic with the believe, statement here, but I see your prediction, and I care to disagree, or I want to hear your thoughts here.
So Jake, I'm going with a 2-1 loss because I'm feeling realistic at this point because I can no longer, and I'll be realistic with my bet as well. I just think it's going to be a tough one, dude. I think this Seattle team is in stride, playing well and in form, and that's really important in soccer, and especially when you're at home against a City team that is limping coming in after having back-to-back 4-1 Ls. I think it's difficult for us, and I would love to see us somehow scrounge out a point here, but unfortunately, yeah, I don't see us getting a point here. If we can't even get a point at home versus Vancouver, I don't see us going to Seattle 4 days later and getting any points, so I'm going with a 2-1L.
Yeah, no, I mean, I hear you. I am going to continue sipping the hopium until I am face down in a ditch somewhere, though. And I'm going to give us a hope for results here. And I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw, which would be about as good as I can see this game going for us. And with that, getting to the Grahammers, City is at plus 360, Seattle at minus 165, the draw at plus 300, over under set at 2.5 at minus 150 for the over, plus 115 for the under. I've had to get creative here to back up what I just said as my prediction, because if I was a betting man that had no skin in this game, there's a lot of good Seattle bets I would imagine taking right now, including clean sheet and the under. But where I actually am going to go is I'm going to go the under 2.75. So an Asian total here where I'm splitting my bet. Partially on the under 2.5, so I can't see more than 2 goals go in, and the under 3, where if I have the 3, we push. So basically, if there's 2 goals in the game, I'm going to be in the money on both, and I'll cash that. So under 2.75, and I believe that is at minus 115 right now. Yeah, minus 115.
So Jake, here's your hopium for you. I'm going both teams to score. So we're going to get a goal, and the under 4.5, which is what we bet on this last game. And unfortunately, you did not. We didn't talk about our bets last game. Let's not talk about it. But I like that bet in this game because this is a team that doesn't give up a lot of goals. They don't score a lot of goals, and God knows we're not scoring a lot of goals. So the under 4.5 in both teams to score at plus 120, that is me saying that we're going to score a goal, and I'm nervous about. But there's your hopium, is that hopefully we can get a goal because I can't not root for us to at least score a goal in this game. So both teams to score under 4.5 at plus 120 is my hammer.
So it'll be interesting to see this one. I mean, you ultimately at some point you've got to see a response from this team, and the response doesn't mean a barn-burning blowout of Seattle in Seattle. I think a response is a feisty, tenacious St. Louis City comes out and does not care who Seattle is, does not care they're playing on turf or at Lumen Field, that comes out swinging at this team and then maintains that through an entire match. And if all that comes and goes and Seattle still beats you, it is what it is. But I want to see something from this team that signals to me that they're listening to what Hack is listening is what he's talking about. They're fighting for their teammates. They're not pointing fingers. I just want to see something that to me is a win. If you can get a little bit of a right foot forward in terms of what we're seeing as a mentality lapse and pointing fingers and blame gaming, I want to see some positivity. And I don't think that's too much to ask as a fan. I'm not asking for a win. So I want to see that on Wednesday night. Like if we can get that, I'm happy, because that's what you need to then all bond together and go beat the crap out of Sporting Kansas City on Saturday.
Quick roundup to this, Jake. I forgot about this. Mr. Kyle Hebert's back.
Yep.
So unfortunately, Canada just bowed out yesterday in an incredible game in PK. So if anybody didn't see that, Canada went ahead in the 80th minute, and Suarez scored in the 90th +2, went straight to PKs. They lost 4-3 in PKs. Kyle did not get any minutes up there that I am aware of. He's going to come back. I don't think he's going to go. If he does go straight into the starting 11, I think if you have Nilsson and Parker healthy, maybe Kyle's our left back in this game. So I said Martinic, throw Kyle Hebert in there in my starting 11. So shout out to that. And then quickly, for anybody that is still listening, this is going to be an incredible day of soccer. Go out, get to the pitch. You got Spain and England at 2 p.m. for the Euro final. And then you also have Argentina, Colombia at 7 p.m. I was talking to people last night. If you can't get to the pitch, it sounds like they're shutting down Morgan Ford outside of Amsterdam for these games as well. Get outside. It's going to be hot, but this is an incredible day for soccer. 2 p.m. for the Euro final, 7 p.m. for the Copa final.
Love it. A lot of good footy on right now for anyone that's tuning in. And by the way, we're going to take when we get into Leagues Cup, assuming this team doesn't go very far, which is my assumption at this point. And I think it's a very fair assumption. And if you want me to back it up, I'm happy to. But I think we're going to take a look back, Justin, at some point and talk a little bit about Berhalter's firing. We know there's been a ton of news that we want to talk to and break down, but we can't do it justice when we have so much else to do with City. So we're going to take a look back at some of the other big things going on in the game that impact you all as fans as well. Very, very soon here. So commitment to that probably sometime in and around the Leagues Cup.
And you know what? I'm going to lock us in for that, Jake. We're going to do it with the Soccer Dad pod. Those guys rock. We're going to go to a bar, drink some beers, and talk about the seriousness of what has been happening in the soccer world, not just City, talking about the security problems with the Uruguay-Colombia game and how we're going to fix that for the World Cup. What's going on with Berhalter? Now that he's out, who are we looking for? But Klopp said, "No, I'm done too." So we will cover all of that and loop in some City, some stuff as well. So we'll be reaching out to fans. Please send us some ideas when we reach out as well. But that'll probably be about a month from now. During that Leagues Cup time, because Jake and I kind of need a little bit of a break talking about City because it does get tiresome.
It does, especially when you're not winning. But you know what? We're here. We're here on a Sunday morning. We're doing it for you all. So hopefully you enjoyed. And if you did, make sure you throw us a rating or review on Apple or Spotify. If you're on YouTube, a like or subscribe would do us a solid. So thank you all for listening today. And we'll be back with you all probably the Thursday-ish for the Seattle recap as we head into the barbecue, the second installment for this year. So it should be a blast of a week if we can get some back on the tracks. That's all we need. It's just a little bit of something to latch on to. So give it to us, City. We need it. But for right now, everyone have a great rest of your weekend, your Sunday, and a great week. And we'll talk to you on Thursday. All for City.
All for City.